Hey everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I am live. I'm trying this new angle out on this light. I don't know how I feel about it. Anywho, um, good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me. If you're joining me live, thank you for joining me live. If you are watching this on the replay, put hashtag replay in the comments so that I know that you stopped by and visited me today. Today's topic is boundaries get your needs met. And so I'm just going to get right into this. Turn that notification off. There we go. So, what are boundaries? Boundaries, specifically personal boundaries. Personal boundaries are the limits and rules we set for ourselves within relationships. So pretty much you're letting people know the playbook for how to engage with you. There are different types of boundaries. There are emotional, there are mental, there are physical boundaries, specifically around like your personal space and physical touch, what you allow and don't allow. There's material, there's workplace boundaries, there's sexual boundaries, and people may just think that's physical, but that is also the emotional and the mental aspect of what all is involved with sexuality. And then also there's time boundaries, how you use or misuse your time. And so what else? Boundaries help you feel safe and they help you navigate life and relationships better. You can you can say them out loud, but ultimately boundaries are for you to make sure they are being enforced. You can voice boundaries out loud. We hope that when we say our boundaries out loud, that people are going to listen to them, take it into consideration, and respect that. But it's not a guarantee, but it is up to you to make sure that you make your boundaries known and that you enforce the boundaries with whatever consequences you may have in place. So I do want to introduce myself in case we have never met before. My name is Yaminah, aka Coach Yamz, and I am the owner of Healing is Work Coaching. And so my whole thing is I want to help women to stop doing shit out of obligation so they can live life on their terms. Everybody should be able to enjoy life and be happy. I want to see everybody win, but specifically in a space for women because we don't have permission to do that everywhere. And so what is a lack of boundaries doing in your life? How's it showing up? So for me, it was me saying yes when I really wanted to say no to things. And you know, if you say yes to something and you really wanted to say no, you're going to show it with an attitude. Your vibe is going to be off because you don't really want to be there. If it's family functions or something like that, you may over time grow resentment because you feel like you're obligated to do these things and you never really want to, and you stay for too long, and it's a whole lot of things. Also, in workplace, it looks like fixing people's mistakes instead of letting them know that they've made a mistake, and that grows resentment sometimes, frustration. And also, the thing is that most of the time people don't even know that they've done something that's crossed a boundary or that's been counterproductive or whatever the case may be. And so bring things to people's attention so they have a chance to correct their actions. This can also, a lack of boundaries, can look like family, friends, or coworkers making inappropriate comments about your body, which turns into you feeling insecure, you feeling uncomfortable in your skin, and it could even look like feeling guilted into old habits. So say you're at that holiday function with family and everybody's eating what they've been eating, but you've changed your diet recently. And it's like, oh, you're not going to have any of this extra cake or any additional whatever it is that you decided that you're not doing anymore. Having a lack of boundaries will have you eating things that you don't want to eat, even though you said that you had changed your ways because you feel guilted into those old patterns. And so we don't have to live like that. We just don't. And so if you recognize that you have lacked boundaries in your life, put me in the comments. I just want to see who is brave enough to admit that most of us have grown up without boundaries, and that's the truth. I've been learning boundaries in the last for 4 or 5 years, but I've gotten really good at it in the last couple years just because I keep at it. It's a practice and it's ongoing work. And so what I want to do is I want to give you 3 tips for setting boundaries that you can walk away with and do something with today, right now. And so tip number 1, decide what you want. You deciding what you want looks like, say, deciding what's okay, what's not okay. It looks like having a conversation with yourself and saying, okay, the next time this comes up, what do I want this to look like? How do I want this to play out? So decide what you want. And then we've got tip number 2, which is to choose words that don't blame. And so we all have been in the position where somebody's like, oh, you did this and you said that and you made me you. And it makes people defensive. And so when people are defensive, they are not hearing what you're saying. And so approaching this from a non-blame standpoint will get you further. They say you attract more bees with honey than vinegar, or flies, or you know what I'm saying. And so this can look like saying, I feel blank when blank. So for example, I don't play around with my time. My friends know if they are riding with me, when I am ready to go, and I have told them the time, when I'm ready to go, I'm leaving. If you're there or not, it's not on me because I don't play with my time. And so communicating that in a way that is like a first time saying that to somebody. If you're saying this to your partner, for instance, you could say, I feel rushed when we arrive to events late. And that will let them know how y'all showing up late makes you feel. And so tip number 3 is going to be decide on the consequences. So with boundaries, figuring out what you want, figuring out the wording, all that's great, but there has to be some kind of consequence, some kind of repercussion for the violation of the boundary. And so you have to decide what action or inaction it is that you're going to take when that boundary is being violated. And so that needs to be clearly communicated so that whoever it is that you're talking to knows what's at stake if it doesn't go a way in which you're comfortable with allowing it to go. And so continuing with my previous example, if you feel rushed because y'all get to events late and you've communicated that, the consequence part of the boundary can be, from now on, I will be leaving the house at 1 hour before the event starts. And so if you're not ready, you will need to find your own transportation there. To just let them know, do what you must, however you see fit, but know that I'm going to leave 1 hour before, or whatever works for you. I'm going to leave 1 hour before, and if you're not ready to leave when I'm ready to leave, you have to find your own way. And so with boundary implementation, you are going to have happier, healthier relationships because you're going to be more intentional with how you are engaging with people and with life in general. The best way to get good at boundaries is to address things as they come up. Sitting on a situation that's come up five times in the last week, just go ahead and sit down and figure out a handful of those things that are pressing on you, and start working out the language of how you're going to deal with that the next time it comes up so that you're ready. I like to put notes in my phone of how I'm going to deal with a boundary with a specific person regarding a specific instance. And I do want you to know it is never too late to set a boundary. It's never too late. You can be married to your husband or wife or whoever for the last 5 years. And if today, right now, you've decided that something is no longer okay with you, you have the right to change your mind and communicate that. And know know that there will be backlash from people when you go on this boundary setting journey. Boundary setting is a new way of life for you, but it's also an adjustment for the person that you're setting the boundary with. And so sometimes they're going to take offense. It's not about them. It's about you making sure that you're good. But if they're not doing the same work, they're not going to understand. And that's okay. They don't have to understand. But you do have to protect yourself. And so setting boundaries is going to be uncomfortable. And okay, it's okay. Lean into the work. Lean into the discomfort. And people will eventually get on board. One of my favorite sayings is, I can show you better than I can teach you. And sometimes that's the way that boundary work plays out. And it's okay. So that's our time together today. If you've gotten anything out of this live, please tag someone in the comments so that they can get in on this action. It can be a friend, it can be a foe, it doesn't honestly matter. Also, if you feel like you need help setting these boundaries, and getting your relationships to a place that are going to be more happy and fulfilling for you, book a time for us to chat. Chat with Yamz, YAMZ.com, and we can get a plan worked out to where you are a boundary setting badass. Because I tell you, there was a time when it would take me a couple days to put a boundary together. And these days I can sit down and think about whatever it is that has transpired, and then say, okay, well, what do I want this to look like going forward? What words do I need to use? I construct it, and I've got in about 3 to 5 sentences everything that needs to be said that's going to make it crystal clear that there's no blame here, but no thank you. And so, yes, the resource I want to leave you with is an author, therapist, and phenomenal woman, in my opinion, Nedra Tawwab. If you look her up, on Instagram, I also put her website in the comments. But if you look her up, she's got a lot of tips. She's got a book that you can purchase, workbooks, newsletter, all kinds of stuff, so that you can get your boundary life together. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. And join me every Monday at 5:30 Central Standard Time, where I will be spending about 10 minutes with you to give you some food for thought and some actionable tips that you can use immediately in your life. This is where I'm gonna leave you. Oh, hey Antea girl, how you doing? If there's any questions, I don't know if you heard anything I said, but if you got any questions after you get done watching the video, put them in the comments. I will circle back around to them. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.